Hello and welcome back to B2B with Extra Hands. I'm your host, Rashid Hamid, here to sprinkle a little creativity on your business strategy today. Let's talk about something we've all been guilty of: over-relying on social media to market our businesses. Social media is great, but sometimes you need to think outside the digital box, especially when everyone's feed is already overflowing with cute dogs and dance trends. So today, we're diving into creative ways to market your business off social media. No hashtags, no filters, just fresh, engaging ideas that'll make your audience say, wow, I didn't see that coming. First up, let your packaging do the work. Custom thank you notes, quirky wrapping paper, or even a sticker that makes people smile can turn your packaging into a marketing moment. I once saw a coffee shop print funny fortunes on their napkins like, your barista has a crush on you. People loved it. Packaging isn't just a wrapper. It's your personality. Use it. Next, partner up. Teaming with local businesses opens you to a new audience. If you're a fitness coach, connect with a juice bar for joint promotions. If you run a bakery, pair up with a flower shop. Cupcakes and roses, anyone? Partnerships aren't just about new customers. They're about building community, and nothing markets your business better than a solid local squad. Let's bring it back to the streets. So think sidewalk, chalk art, quirky bookmarks in library books, or fun posters in unexpected spots. One of my favorites, a dog groomer. I knew back in the day used to leave tiny dog-shaped magnets on parked cars in their neighborhood. People kept them and remembered the brand. Now, that's marketing that sticks, right? Literally. This one's big. Create an experience people can't stop talking about. Host workshops, pop-ups, or themed events. Imagine a florist hosting a bouquet making night with wine and cheese. It's personal, it's meaningful, it gets people buzzing. Plus, events like this tend to generate word of mouth. No TikTok required. Finally, don't sleep on snail mail. A beautifully designed postcard or handwritten note can stand out in a sea of digital noise. Bonus points if it's so nice that they hang it on their fridge. Fridge real estate is prime marketing territory. All right, there you have it. Creative ways to market your business without touching Instagram or Twitter. These ideas are fun, memorable, and best of all, different. Try one out. Let me know how it goes. Thanks for tuning in to B2B with Extra Hands. Until next time, stay bold, stay creative, and keep showing the world why your business is unforgettable. See you next time.
Welcome back, everyone, to Life Uncensored, Navigating Adulthood, one episode at a time. I'm your host, Amanda Lockhart Davis, and we have a great show to kick off 2025. We're going to be talking with the Miss Kristi Mitchell, top-notch marketing consultant who's going to be giving us top-notch tips to start off our businesses right, with marketing and how we're going to see better things than what we saw last year, and just improve upon our business as far as it pertains to marketing. So buckle up, because Kristi is riding shotgun today. Let me tell you a little bit about Kristi before I bring her on. I'm super excited to talk about her. I've already got my notepad over here on the side because I'm going to be taking notes myself as we're talking. So let me tell you about Kristi. She is a strategic marketing consultant who helps service-based business owners transition from relying on referrals to leveraging a clear marketing strategy. With an MBA, over a decade of corporate marketing experience, and 5 years running her own business, Kristi simplifies marketing to empower clients for growth and success. She has worked with 100 plus business owners, proving that a well-defined strategy can overcome the complexity of marketing. So let's have a warm welcome for my friend and colleague, Miss Kristi Mitchell. Hey, Kristi.
Hello. Thank you so much for bringing me on.
Thank you for being on. Like, I'm so excited about this topic. Like I said, I've got my pen, I've got my notepad right here. I'm gonna be taking notes myself. I had a friend and colleague of mine, when she saw that you were going to be on and what the topic was going to be. She was like, "Oh, everybody needs to listen to this." So I'm
Yeah.
be tuned in. I said, "Me too. I'm taking notes."
I think especially in January, right? Like actually
Yeah.
my business usually picks up in December because it's like end of year and people are like, oh, I got to get ready for next year. And so, yeah, it's a busy time for marketing.
Yeah. And listen, why not? Like if you're going to have a New Year's resolution and you're a business owner of any size, why not have marketing on that list somewhere? So
For
I'm
sure.
with it. I'm with it. So I'm glad you're here. I want to just jump right into it. Let's first start off just by introducing yourself a little bit to the audience, talking about your background, telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So as you're reading the bio, I was like, I gotta update this. I'm actually almost 6 years in business, running my
Oh,
own consulting business.
wow.
Yeah, in
Awesome.
February it'll be 6 years, so I'm almost there. It has been such a journey. So in the time that I've been, I won't go into all the details of my corporate experience. I'll just say I did a little bit of everything in the marketing world, digital marketing specifically. And so when I came into, running my own business, I was like, well, I can do whatever people need in terms of marketing. And so I was basically an agency of one, and I worked with a lot of small business owners, a lot of them local. And I did that for about a year. And then the pandemic hit. And it took about 6 months. I felt the effects hard. Most of my clients did not renew their contracts. And I found myself with like just one client. I was like, oh my gosh, okay. So if I need to rebuild and reinvent myself after only 1 year, let me take a step back and see, like, what do I want this to look like? And what I realized was I really didn't enjoy the marketing execution work. The work that truly got me excited and I felt like I was like living in my zone of genius was on the strategic planning side. And so I really made a huge shift in my business to focus on the strategic planning instead of doing all the execution. There's so many great execution people out there who absolutely love writing content and building websites and creating graphics and all of those things. And I have a great network of those people. I realized I don't need to do all those things. I can stay in the lane that I love, which is the strategic planning side, because I have this kind of ability to look at all the pieces and say, okay, what's working, what's not? Do we need to take some things away? Do we need to add some? Do we just need to make sure that they really integrate more cohesively so that we have a strategic plan instead of these like disconnected tactics that we're not really sure why we're doing them and how they're performing for us?
Got you. Wow. That's kind of eye-opening. I would not have thought you were going to say that as someone who's been in marketing as long as you.
Yeah.
You kind of said the opposite of what I thought you were going to say you liked doing in terms of the marketing piece of it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, strategic planning, that's a trigger phrase for me because I feel like we are, one and the same with that. Like I like seeing pieces of the puzzle and then putting it all together in one big picture and saying, this is the target areas. This is what we need to hit. So
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to branch off from that piece a little bit. For somebody who doesn't have that type of sight, that type of vision to be able to do that.
Yes.
What is when you're talking to, maybe initial consultation with a potential client and you realize, okay, this person isn't that type. What's the first bit of advice you give them? Is it you need to find a SME that is their thing, or what do you tell them to do?
In terms of like on a discovery call with a client?
Yeah.
I like to get a sense of like what they've been doing in their marketing. And usually, even if it's just like high level, like just list off like, where are you showing up on social? Are you doing emails? How are you getting your name out there? Just getting a sense of kind of what they've been up to. And what I can tell you is a lot of the time, maybe most of the time, when I talk to business owners, the marketing activities that they list off are mostly categorized in what I would call the top of the funnel. So I use the marketing funnel framework for the way that I teach marketing, the way that I approach it with my clients. It's super simple. It's not rocket science. But when I show it to people, they're like, oh my gosh, okay, this already feels easier. It feels simpler. And so when we think of the marketing funnel, at the top is attract, right? Because first people need to know about you. And typically that is where business owners are focusing all of their marketing efforts, is on the attract phase, getting out in front of new people. We need to increase our visibility. We need to increase our brand awareness. We need more people to know that we exist and what we do, which, yes, that's the first step. But you could get out in front of as many people as you want, especially when you're a service-based business owner, which is who I work with. That's not enough because you need to build that know, like, and trust factor. You can't just have people know you. They have to like you and they have to trust you, and then they're going to be ready to buy.
Absolutely.
And so the next attract is at the top. The next stage is convert. That's getting someone to fill out a form so that now you have their name and email address. Now they've become a lead for you and you can stay in touch with them better. That third section of the funnel, which is usually the longest for service-based businesses, is nurture, right? We have to stay in touch with people over time. And typically that's done through things like email marketing and consistent social media presence. And then at the bottom of the funnel, we have closing the deal, which is making the sale when the timing is right. I usually talk to clients about things like testimonials, case studies, that kind of thing. What can you be doing in your marketing all along the way that's going to make closing that deal easier? And so that's when I get on those calls with potential clients and we're talking like, what have you been doing? You know, what are some of your goals? It usually becomes very apparent that they've been like maybe laser focused on one tactic, or they've been doing a bunch of things, but they all kind of fall in that top part of the funnel.
Gotcha.
And that is the big miss.
Got you. Okay. Tell our audience again, what are the four?
Yes.
Four pieces. You said attract.
4 stages of the funnel. Attract, convert, nurture, close.
I love it. I love it. That's a great way. That's a great, for a person like me, I'm a very visual person. That's a great visual for a person like me. Like I can see the funnel. I can see, that's great. I can see the stages.
And if you think about it too, right? If we're like putting stuff into the top of a funnel, but then there's like a big gaping hole, all of that is falling out of the funnel. So like how much is actually going to come out the bottom as a closed deal if you don't have something going at each of those stages to bring people along in that journey?
Right. I love it. All right. Next thing I want to talk about, we're in 2025 now. What are some trends? Are there any new trends? But what are some marketing trends that businesses should be aware of as we are starting to gear up and get ready in 2025?
Yes, I was so excited you want to talk about this because I did a post on it at the end of 2024, and I was just working on a LinkedIn post for this week on trends. So perfect topic. The number one thing, and this is not a new trend, but it's evolving and continues to evolve and will continue to evolve, is the use of AI. So one thing for me specifically in the realm of marketing and AI, I feel very strongly that we should not compromise our authenticity as businesses and as business owners and those people representing businesses. We need to be aware of the implications of using AI and what that can do to our authenticity. So for me personally, I have chosen to use AI in a way that helps enhance content that I've already created, not to create brand new content for me, because I feel very strongly that it needs to be my voice. It needs to be my thoughts, my expertise, all of those things. I want it to be me. It needs to be. Otherwise, I won't post it or share it. And so I think that with business, a lot of business owners jumping on the AI bandwagon early or in the middle here, it can seem like a good alternative to like paying a copywriter to create content for us. However, I think more often than not, what ends up happening is those business owners who are very aware of their brand and how they want to portray themselves and how they want to connect with their audience, I think they are hyper aware pretty quickly of how using AI is maybe not the best approach. And even though it might save you money, it is probably going to compromise the integrity of your brand and not going to be effective because let's be honest, those of us who are especially on LinkedIn all the time, you can usually spot AI generated posts a mile away.
Yeah, definitely. So let me ask you, let's talk a little bit more about that. Let's use examples of, like you said, like posts on social media or blogs, or articles. Would you say that it's okay to use AI to polish what you've already created? So you've written out a blog, but you want to make sure that you want it to look professional, sound professional. You want it to, whatever the things are.
Yes.
It's okay to write out your blog and then say, okay, AI tool, whatever it is, chat, Genesis, whatever, polish this up for me, and that's
Yes.
okay. But what you don't really care for is, hey, I need a blog about how trees are made, and then
Yeah.
letting the AI do the work for you. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. There's a couple caveats to that though that I will
Okay.
share. So, and again, this is personal preference. So
Sure.
I have like long equated using AI in the way that you described, like, okay, write a blog for me on XYZ. Like, I have equated that in my mind. It takes me back to like middle school and high school days of us getting hammered into us like plagiarism. Like, do not
Yeah.
plagiarize. Like, you need to cite your sources. Like, and so I'm like, it just doesn't make sense.
You're dating us, Kristi. I
I
don't know
know.
how I feel
I
about
know.
that.
Is plagiarism even still a thing? I don't know. It's this like moral responsibility that I have that like my content needs to come from me.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I think it's great to use AI for that use that you're saying, like clean this up, polish it up. I will also say I just shared this idea with someone in my membership group just this morning. She said, I whenever I go to create a LinkedIn post, it just ends up being so intricate and I want to like put so much information into it. And I said, well, why don't you write that and then give that to an AI tool and say, break this out into 3 separate LinkedIn posts for me.
Right.
If you're having a
That's
hard
great
time doing
idea.
that. So that's one use. The other thing I will say is if you go to my website, kristimitchell.com, and you look at my blog, my last handful of blogs usually have a video at the bottom. And I want to tell you something. That blog was written by AI based on the video that is posted there because I'm using a tool that you feed it your own content. You feed it video and audio content and it writes content for you. And it is really freaking good in terms of sounding like me. I always go through it. I always make edits, but it doesn't take heavy editing because it does a great job taking what I have said and putting it into words in a way that just really makes sense.
So again, like you're saying, you have put together the content, you have like a video or what have you. The AI is basically reading it kind of like a captioning experience, and then putting it back out there in content in a more polished way or a different way.
Yes.
For different uses.
Yes. LinkedIn posts,
I love
blogs,
that.
emails. It is totally game changing. I'm working on actually creating a workshop to teach other people how to use it because
I love that.
it saves me so much time. As someone who I'm a solo business owner, right? Like I have some help in my business, but it's me creating all my content. And I feel very strongly that I want it to sound like me. It needs to feel good and authentic. It's not something I've ever felt like I can fully hand off to somebody else. And so it allows me to keep that level of authenticity and integrity in me, but working smarter, not harder.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you mind sharing with the audience a few of the AI tools that you are comfortable using?
Yes. So Cast Magic is the one that I was just talking about, where you feed it your own video and audio content to create written content. It also allows you
magic, like magic. Casting a spell. Magic.
Cast Magic. Yep. And last I checked, they do let you do a 7-day free trial. Oh, nice. I have an affiliate link that I can share with you after the show if you're okay with that.
Sure. Yeah.
I absolutely love the tool. It's entirely worth, I think, I don't know, $20 a month or what I spend on it. It's totally worth it. That's my favorite tool. I have used ChatGPT with caution recently. I've used it actually so I do some volunteer work with a local nonprofit. It's a women's networking group. And we needed to craft an email to send out to ask about sponsorship opportunities at hopefully a discounted rate since we're a nonprofit. And so I was just like, those kinds of things, like I can agonize over the words. And so I would just go to ChatGPT and be like, write this email for me. So that's helpful, writing emails for something like that, where it's not necessarily like representing your brand kind of thing. But then the other examples we've already talked about too, right? Like feeding it your content and asking it to do something specific. I've used it to help me. One thing I don't feel like I'm totally great at doing on my own is like brainstorming title ideas. So I find I used to use Canva Canva has an AI tool. So I used to be like really afraid of ChatGPT. And so I just started using Canva at first, Canva's magic, right? And so I would say, give me 5 title ideas for a LinkedIn Live on this topic. And then I'd have it write the description for me too. So I think that AI tools can be really helpful for those kinds of things.
Got you.
Brainstorming for sure. And then just crafting those, titles and descriptions and things that we can kind of just agonize over.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, folks, is moral of the story is don't lose your authenticity for ease.
Yes.
And time savings.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you want your brand to stand out, especially, and I'm going to say, and you tell me if you disagree with this, Kristi, I'm going to say, especially for a new business owner, that you want your brand to stand out, then you have to introduce the world to your voice, who you are. And AI tools, though great, just like any technology, they're great for what they're for. So I'm hearing moral of the story is don't lose your authenticity for ease and time.
Yes.
Do you agree with that? Yeah. Okay.
Agreed. Yep. Agreed.
I'm a good student.
You are.
Okay. So let's talk about simplifying marketing strategies.
Mm-hmm.
How can businesses simplify their marketing strategies without losing the effectiveness of their marketing?
Yeah. So if we go back to that marketing funnel framework that we talked about earlier, again, attract, convert, nurture, close. I think a lot of times the inclination when someone wants to like amp up their marketing efforts is to think like, well, I have to be doing more. Like I need to add more things. And if you use that framework to really take stock of like, what are your activities that you're already doing? Which area of the funnel are they falling into? Again, oftentimes they're at the top and not like those middle sections. And so really kind of taking a step back to say, okay, out of all the activities I'm doing, which ones go in each places, which I have a resource I can share if you want to put it in notes or anything. So business owners can do this for themselves.
Okay.
I think that it's helpful to first take stock of what you're currently doing. How does it fit into the framework? And then second, what things are working and not working? So it's not always about adding on. Sometimes it's about taking away and honing in on things that have been working. So I'm a big proponent of using data. Anytime we can track some data and use that to help make informed decisions on what marketing tactics are working and what aren't, are there tweaks that we need to make? Or maybe we need to just take a break from that thing because it hasn't been working for us, but this other thing has. So what if we double down on this? A perfect example of this, a lot of times businesses come to me, they are on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram for their usually B2B service-based business. And by the time we get done working together, I've usually convinced them that they can just focus on LinkedIn. They don't have to be on Facebook and Instagram. Now, I'm not saying that this applies to everybody, but the business owners who come to me a lot of times are struggling to keep up with all these things. So they're feeling like, I'm trying to do all these things and like Facebook and Instagram are not performing for them usually 9 times out of 10. And so it's like, why are you stressing yourself out to be on this other platform when you get better traction on this other platform and you could take away the time you're spending on Facebook and Instagram and double down on LinkedIn and really get better results? So that's just one specific example, but it can be applied in a lot of different ways that I see with businesses who, again, are trying to add more and more, and it's not always about doing more.
Let me ask you, because I think that you just hit upon a point that a lot of, especially small business owners can relate to. Why do you think that folks aren't getting as much traction on Facebook and Instagram?
Unfortunately, I think it's just the way the platforms have evolved. They've become what a lot of us call pay to play. So organic reach and engagement on Facebook and Instagram has dropped significantly. And I will say on LinkedIn, especially lately, people are like, my impressions are way down. It happens, right? Like there's algorithm changes all the time to all of the platforms. But I would say just as a general rule across the board, when we're talking about these 3 platforms, LinkedIn has remained the place where you can get found organically and you can expand your audience organically. When I say organically, I mean not paying for ads.
Right. Or boost or right.
Yes.
That's what they're called on Facebook, I think. Boost.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I know people who had like very successful, thriving groups on Facebook. And because of algorithm changes that were made, gosh, it's probably been 2 or 3 years ago now, they all of a sudden couldn't even reach the members in their groups unless they paid to boost their posts within their groups.
Wow.
Like, it's insane what they've done, I think, with the
Wow.
algorithms and the reach.
Yeah, that's wild. And
Mhm.
so do you think that's more specific to service-based businesses rather than product-based businesses?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
I would say so.
yeah,
I can't really speak from product-based standpoint because I don't work with those types of businesses.
understand.
But yeah,
Yeah,
definitely for service-based business. But again, I mean, even no matter really what kind of business you are, the algorithm is the algorithm. And if Facebook and Instagram want your ad money to be able to reach people, you're
mhm,
gonna have to. And I'm not saying you need to spend a fortune, depending on who your audience is and who you're trying to reach. But if you're trying to do it without paying for ads, it's increasingly difficult on those
right,
platforms.
right. Well, let's backtrack a little bit because you mentioned a buzzword, data.
Hmm.
Data scares some people.
It does.
So what do you say to those who are scared of the word data or having to deal with data or having to look at data and analyze it and break it down? And like, what do you say to those people?
Honestly, I say find an expert.
Mm,
I was just having this conversation on my live show and podcast with a guest that we can't do all the things, right?
mm-mm,
Like we
mm-mm.
can't as business owners be experts in all of the things. And so if data scares you and data gives you a headache and makes you want to pull your hair out, don't force yourself to try and become an expert in the data. Find someone who can look at it for you.
Mhm.
And maybe you have someone in your network who's willing to give you some tips without having to, full on hire a consultant and have them analyze and give it back to you. But I would say lean on people who are better at it than you if it's not your area of
Yeah,
expertise.
yeah. No, I
If you're
like that.
willing to learn, there's tons of great resources out there, right? YouTube
Yeah.
is endless full of tutorials and knowledge. So if you want to learn it,
Absolutely.
there's ways you can.
Absolutely. No, you're definitely right about that. You can pretty much go to YouTube for anything.
Yeah.
My kid got a Lego set for Christmas, and it's a transformer. And he's a whiz with those. He puts them together like so fast, these 1,000, 2,000 piece Lego sets. But when it came to transforming it, he was struggling. My older kid was like, "Oh, let's look it up on YouTube." Boop, oh, here you go.
Yes.
And in 60 seconds, it was transformed. So, like you
Yep.
said, you can literally go there for anything.
Mhm. For sure. But I think you have to ask yourself, is this something I want to learn?
Yeah, yeah.
And do I have the time for it?
So I'm going to tell you something that I tell people that my clients and others. I 100% believe in SMEs, having a subject matter expert that it comes easy to them, they enjoy it. When they explain it to you, it makes perfect sense, that sort of thing. But I also believe that you need to be savvy enough to have a conversation, dangerous enough to have a conversation, even about the things that you are not, expert in.
Hmm.
So if you're in a room full of people talking about marketing is not my niche, right? But I know enough that I can have a conversation in a group of people who are only talking about marketing. So
Yep.
I feel like that's important. But I do 100% agree with you that if you don't have the bandwidth, you don't have the patience, you don't have the know-how, whatever those things are, seek out that assistance. And
Yes.
like you said, grabbing someone from your network, starting there is
Hmm.
amazing idea. An
Yes.
amazing idea. Yeah.
Yeah. And I totally agree with you on that point with like needing to have baseline knowledge of the topics for sure. It actually reminds me of when I worked in higher ed and I remember my boss at the time, we were going out and interviewing agencies to work with because we needed them to do ad placement for us to promote this executive program. And I still remember my boss. I love him. We still keep in touch to this day. But I remember him telling this agency that we ended up hiring because they were like going over this intense dashboard with us with all this data. And he was like, speak to me like I'm a golden retriever. Like, and he's a super intelligent guy. But like, I think that's an important thing is even if you are going to go hire a subject matter expert, make sure that it's someone who's going to take the time to help educate you and not just throw a bunch of
Exactly.
stuff at you and like gaslight you and tell you, yep, everything's working great. Like, let's just stay the course, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really
Mm-hmm.
important. I think when you're trying to find that trusted partner is like, are they going to be able to explain this in a way that I can understand when it's not my area of expertise?
Absolutely. I agree. I mean, and we've seen, listen, we can use the examples that we've seen with celebrities and their taxes. They had a tax accountant, and come to find out, now they're on the hook, some of them getting jail time even because they didn't know enough for themselves to ask questions to
Oh
these
yeah.
accountants and these people who are, you know, handling millions and millions of their dollars. It's important to know at least enough so you can be dangerous in the conversation. So if you
Yes.
hear something, you can go, I don't know
Yeah.
if that, I don't know if that sounds right. You know,
Mhm.
yeah, I agree with you on that. I agree. And I love I love your old boss. Talk to me like I'm a golden retriever. I love that.
It stuck with me. I'm telling you, that was probably like 15 years ago now.
I love that. I might use that. I love that. Shout out to your old boss.
Yes.
Okay, Kristi, talk to us about some let's get into tips now. What are some
Yes.
tips for setting realistic and impactful marketing goals for the new year?
Mm. Tips for setting realistic goals.
Yeah.
So I would say don't try and do too many things. That's common, right? Like, okay, let's do all the things. Right? We want our marketing to be super successful. Again, it's not always about adding more. It's about, getting strategic. Sometimes it's about simplifying, making sure things tie together. So I think keeping it simple is important, staying focused and really like being clear what is the challenge that you're trying to solve with your marketing. So is it truly that we're not getting in front of enough people, or is it that we don't have, again, going back to the marketing funnel, for thinking in terms of the framework, is I think a lot of times we jump to, well, we need more people to know about us.
Mm-hmm.
But is that truly what you need? Or are you lacking those systems and marketing structure to get people into your world, to get them to sign up and get on your email list, to nurture them over time through consistent value add content that you're emailing to them on a regular basis? Get really clear on what you need to focus on in terms of that, because a lot of times getting in front of new people isn't necessarily what you need to do.
Yep.
There's
Yep.
there's other things within that strategic, right? If we're looking at it strategically in the realm of the marketing funnel, a lot of times it's other things that really need attention. So I think having that clarity is really important before you go investing time, energy, and budget on specific marketing tactics.
Well, that's perfect because that was going to be my next question to you, was specific about marketing budget. Like, what should people be doing? What should their approach be as it pertains to their 2025 marketing budget? And if there's any specific areas they should or should not focus on when it comes to the budget for marketing in their business.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to our conversation about data on this one, right? So
Ah,
looking at the data of like what happened last year, what did we invest in? Listen, I'm going to be the first to say sometimes it can be really hard to tie outcomes to marketing tactics. It's not cut and dry. It's not black and white. There's still a rule in marketing that people need to see a message 7 times before it resonates. So even though someone who fills out a form might say, "Oh, I found your website," well, maybe they actually found you on LinkedIn, or maybe someone told them about you first, or maybe they heard you on a podcast, or it's really hard to have true data on all the touch points that someone might have before they get to the point of reaching out to connect with you. So I put that caveat in there, but I think it's important to look at what you've tried in the past and use that to help inform where you focus your budget on the next year.
okay. So I'm kind of also hearing in that, again, more may end up being less in some cases as it pertains to that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and the thing is with marketing, like there's so much you can do that doesn't have to cost anything, right? So I just did a power hour with somebody this week, and we were talking. He hosts his own podcast with a couple other people, and I was like, "Well, do you go on other people's podcasts like as a guest?" He's like, "Oh, maybe a couple times a year, like just when people ask me." And I'm like, "You're so good on camera and on the microphone, like." that is low hanging fruit. Like, yes, it's going to take some time to go find good podcasts to get on where your audience is listening. But I mean, aside from the time that you have to spend, that's free usually. You don't usually pay to be on somebody's podcast.
Right.
And so, like, thinking in those terms too is like, what's something different that we haven't tried that maybe doesn't require a huge budget or any budget at all besides the time investment?
Yeah, I think, like you said, there is no perfect formula for it. And you made a very good point that I didn't think of, but it makes perfect sense when you said it out loud. You might ask someone, "Oh, okay, well, how did you hear about us?" "Oh, I saw your website. I Googled and I saw your website." But they don't realize that actually it was, Kristi told you about me, or, whatever, that kind of thing. Because there's so many ways to find businesses and the products and services that you need that it kind of gets lost in the sauce how you got there. You just know you got there.
Yeah.
So you make a very good point by saying that.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't still ask the question, especially, on your form, or, I think I asked it on my discovery call form, is like, how did you hear about me? But also in conversation, right? When you first get on a call with somebody. So how did you hear about me? And sometimes what they tell you on the call will be different than what they put on the form. It's still worth asking because it gives you a sense of like, okay, where is my time, energy, and budget going? And is it resulting in people finding me somehow?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, do you think that if someone, just for example purposes, going back to the data, if someone hears, "Oh, your website," consistently, out of 100 people that they asked, 90 of them say website, even though we know that number is not necessarily perfect or exactly correct, do you tell that person then to put more efforts into your website? Or do you kind of tell them to kind of stay where they are and get more data over X amount of time?
Yeah. I mean, depending on what their goals are, for sure. If you're getting a lot of people saying, "I found you through my website," and you're trying to like amplify that and get more people coming to your website and converting, maybe it's time you get a website audit or do a website overhaul. Or maybe maybe if you've already done that and your website looks great and it's fantastic, maybe it's, time to invest in some Google ads or, SEO to really enhance that so that more and more people can find you. Definitely it makes sense to capitalize on the things that are already working for you, and maybe that investment you have to make isn't so great when you're just kind of making refinements and tweaks to something that's already working well for you, as opposed to like diving into a completely new tactic.
Which makes sense to me. Okay. All right, let's talk about tools and platforms.
Yeah.
Are there any tools, marketing tools or platforms that stick out to you that you recommend without even thinking about it, that help streamline efforts, help get results that people are looking for, or is it based on the specific client's needs?
Yes, I am what I would say very platform agnostic in terms of like clients that I work with. Like, let's work with what you're already doing. If there's a capability that's not there, let's see what will integrate with what you already have, or do we need to completely switch? Fun fact, when I first started my business, I thought that I was going to focus on HubSpot only because I love HubSpot as a platform. It's a great marketing tool, like all-in-one software to manage all of your marketing. But what I quickly realized was I didn't want to be in the business of selling software. And so I was like, it doesn't matter what people are using. I can help them regardless. But with that being said, I've always loved HubSpot, but it's not the right fit in my mind for most small business owners. It's too much functionality, too much expense to get the functionality you usually need. And so I really like to tailor those recommendations based on the client. And if we can use what you already have, let's do it. With that being said, the most common thing I get asked is, what do you recommend for an email marketing platform? And I will say MailerLite. They do not pay me to say that. I don't have an affiliate link. I really like MailerLite because I have used tons of back when I used to manage marketing for clients, I've been inside lots of different email marketing platforms. I really love MailerLite, A, because it's free up to 1,000 subscribers. And B, it gives you a lot of functionality on the free version. And when I say that, I mean, there's templates you can use and customize. You can create forms within MailerLite, copy the code, embed it on your website. so that if someone wants to sign up for your email newsletter, they automatically go to MailerLite, and you don't need like a Zapier or some third-party integration software to connect the two things.
Okay.
You can also create landing pages. I think that's still free on MailerLite. So if it's hard for you to manage your own website, you can't create a new page easily, you could create a landing page in MailerLite for a lead magnet or some sort of downloadable offer that you want to promote. So I really, really like the tool for that reason. I find it to be pretty user-friendly. You can have really good like segmentation and grouping capabilities in there. So that's one tool that I always recommend if someone's like, I need a tool for email marketing.
Got you. Wow, I hadn't heard of MailerLite before. I want to ask you, because I like what you said, that you prefer to kind of keep the client where they already live in terms of whatever
If they
tools
like
they're
it.
using, right?
If they like it, and if it has what they need, yes.
Okay. So with that, do you find yourself a lot of times having to, if they mention a tool that you're not familiar with, do you find yourself kind of going down a rabbit hole, so to speak, to get yourself familiar with it, to determine whether or not they should stick with it based on what they've told you their needs are? Or like, how do you handle that? How do you navigate that, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, that's a great question. So a couple things on that. First of all, g2.com is a really great free resource to use when you're evaluating software platforms. So I love it because you can just type in the software, like you could type in MailerLite, look at MailerLite's profile on the platform. It will tell you like the features, it will tell you the different pricing structure, it will have reviews, it will have the types of businesses that generally like this tool, right? Small versus enterprise, that kind of thing. That's a great resource when you're evaluating tools. You can also compare things side by side. So you can pull up MailerLite and MailChimp and like look at them as a side by side comparison, which I think is really helpful. So I always tell people to use that platform. In terms of my work with clients, I'll be honest, I don't necessarily usually have to dive super deep into what their platforms are and the functionality. If they tell me that they're working great and they like them, okay, fine. I might have to do some finagling to figure out how can I find the data that I need to do my like assessment for them. But I don't usually have to get, super in depth on my knowledge on different platforms, because if they tell me it's working for them, okay, great. If they tell me it's not, then I can just lean on the knowledge that I have from other platforms of things they might want to consider.
Okay. No, I like that. Okay. So I want to ask you to tell us the don't for the year.
The don't for the year.
Yes, as it pertains to marketing for your business, what would you say is Kristi's number one don't?
Can I go back to something we already talked about at the beginning?
By all means.
Don't compromise your authenticity for ease. I mean, I'm using your words, but I mean, that's what it's all. I truly believe that for sure.
I like that a lot. And I agree with you. Because at the end of the day, you want to be able to be truthful to yourself for your audience, for your client, for your customer.
Yeah.
I was going to say people can sense when you're being a used car salesman that we used to see, back in the 80s and 90s. People can tell when you're being a sleazy used car salesman.
Yes. And that is exactly the point that I was going to make too, is that not everybody carries the same sense of responsibility to uphold their brand as I do. I recognize that. But I think it's also important to remember that if you're not taking a stand in your content, if you're not proactively building your brand in a certain way to speak to a certain type of audience, you get lost in the noise and you don't resonate with who you're trying to resonate with. So I think it's important from that standpoint too, not just this like moral responsibility kind of thing, but like understanding that if you're just using generic content, it's not going to be effective. You're not going to connect with those ideal potential clients, and then it's all just wasted effort.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that 100%. All right, you heard that, folks. Be authentic. There's reasonings for it, and you'll enjoy it in the long haul. Sometimes taking the long route is better than taking the fast, easy route.
It is for sure. I've worked with, unfortunately, too many clients who say, we worked with an agency, they did all these things, but none of them really worked because the content was just blah. Like it didn't feel aligned to us. It wasn't, what we had hoped for. It didn't feel like it represented our culture and who we are as a company. And so I think you can certainly waste a lot of money on marketing if you're not keeping these things in mind when you're making those decisions.
Mm-hmm. That's a great tip, Kristi. Great. I'm going to ask you this, and I really want you to sit on this.
Okay.
If you could give businesses one piece of advice for starting 2025 with a strong marketing plan that you knew if you said it out loud, they have to take it and run with it,
Mm-hmm.
what would it be? We talked about the don't. What's the big do?
Honestly, the big do is going back to the marketing funnel framework that I talked about, because I think a lot of times strategy can feel, first of all, marketing feels overwhelming to business owners, right? Because the possibilities are endless. And the idea of a strategic marketing plan is like, okay, well, what does that really mean? Well, my interpretation of that is you have a structure in place that's getting you in front of people, bringing them into your world, allowing you to nurture them and educate them over time so that you can turn them into happy customers. To me, that's a strategic marketing plan. And that's why I use the framework that I do with clients, because it helps you wrap your brain around it and makes it more concrete and simple to be like, okay, I can do this. So if you can make sure that your marketing plan for this year addresses all of those 4 stages of the marketing funnel, you're going to set yourself up for way more success than if you're just like, hey, I think we need to run Google ads this year, or we really need to double down on our LinkedIn presence. Like, okay, but why? What purpose does it serve when you're looking at the entire plan?
No, I think that's something that the audience can appreciate, because at the end of the day, having that structure, and listen, there's some people that just like screw structure, for whatever reason. I am not one of those people. I need structure. But having that structure is going to take you a long way. And that structure doesn't necessarily have to be exactly what someone else is saying. Whatever you feel is working for you, if you're getting the results you want to see, right?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that. Kristi, I would like you to talk to the audience a little bit about how you work. If you can walk us through a day of Kristi onboarding a client, what you do, what you don't do, so people just get an understanding for the Kristi Mitchell brand.
Yes. So I actually have a few clients I'm onboarding all at the same time, which doesn't usually happen. So what I do, work with me really starts with, I ask you, I have a survey that you have to fill out. So I have a sense of kind of what your goals are, what your priorities are, what you've been doing. And you have to give me access to your marketing systems. Again, because I like to look at the data and also the content. So my first step is I always tell business owners, like, you can commit to working with me now. I'm not going to need to meet with you for probably a couple of weeks. So if you have a really busy schedule, fine, just give me access to everything. You don't need to worry about a thing. And then we'll meet a couple of weeks later after I have time to look through everything, analyze it, look at the content, and really come up with my recommendations. So typically I'm looking at website, your Google Analytics, looking at social media, whatever channels you're on, and also email marketing. Those are usually like the 3 big things I'm looking at for clients.
Okay. So when you say that you ask for access to their marketing systems, it might not necessarily be I'll call it traditional, I don't know what word to use, or a specific marketing system. It could be, like you said, your Google Analytics because you have a website. It could be your Facebook Analytics because you have a page, and so on, right?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood that part correctly.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's a multi-step process. You got to add me to your Google Analytics. Hopefully you have it installed. If you don't have it installed, I ask you to give me access to whatever website platform you're on, because sometimes there's some data that we could look at there.
Gotcha.
But then the first step is going to be, let's get Google Analytics installed so that we'll have more data to track over time. I also ask for some competitor websites, or like aspirational, just in terms of like SEO. So are there specific keywords that other sites are being found for that you might want to be targeting through your content, kind of thing? So I run a report, a tool that I use. I run your website through it and those competitor or aspirational websites through it as well, to give us a sense of the SEO and keywords, those sorts of things. How is your website performing from an SEO standpoint? Are there like big gaping holes that we need to address? Yeah, and then email marketing. What's the data telling us? What are your open rates like? What's your list size? What are your click rates? Subject lines, like how are you coming up with those subject lines? Do they look good? Can I give you a free tool that you could use to put your subject lines in to make sure you're optimizing for open rates? What does the content of the email look like? Is it clear what you want people to do? Is there a clear call to action? All marketing should have a clear call to action. What's the next step for someone to take? Click on this button, book a call, whatever it is. So looking at email marketing in that way, and then social media, again, the data and the content. What's the data telling us in terms of our engagement, our following, those kinds of things? What does the content look like? Is there consistency? Is it kind of all over the board? How often have you been posting? Are you posting at consistent times? Are you engaging with other people, not just posting kind of thing? So yeah, really doing that deep dive and coming up with all of my recommendations. And then we set up a call to debrief it all. And then we go into my content strategy process, which includes buyer personas, a content strategy workbook, content pillars, really just helping give you those guide rails and that plan for like, okay, what does my marketing look like going forward so that I'm creating content or my team is creating content that's going to resonate with those ideal clients that we're trying to work with.
Oh, wow. Okay. So how long do you stick with a client?
Yeah, so that whole process I just talked about usually takes about 1 to 2 months to get through, just depending on our ability to coordinate schedules. And then from there, it just depends on the client. So I work with coaches and consultants and solo business owners who are DIYing their own content. A lot of them come into my marketing support group afterwards so that they get that ongoing support, accountability, feedback on their content. And then for my bigger businesses, a lot of times they sign on with me for a 6-month or a year-long retainer so that we check in regularly to say, okay, how is this going? A lot of times I'll do quarterly reviews with them to, again, look at that data. Let's see what it looks like 3 months after we've implemented these changes and take stock again and see how things are going. What further tweaks and refinements can we make to get even better results?
Got you. That is awesome. I think that's a great process for working with your clients. And like I said, I'm a visual person. So I literally, as you were talking through it, I can see it happening step by step. So I think that's a great way to work. And I'm going to tell you, and I'm saying this firsthand, because I've worked with, a marketing agency or two in my business. That was not the process.
I am told the way that I approach it is unique, so I feel good about that.
That's going back to that authenticity. That's the word for the day, folks. Authenticity.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Kristi, you have been so great, and I appreciate this. I hope that you will come back and do this again with us, periodically, and just talk about new things, trends, and tips, tricks, and all that sort of thing. In the meantime, I want to know how, and I'm going to add this to the screen so you can see a little bit of information on Kristi. But in the meantime, can you just tell us how we can stay up to date on your upcoming engagements, events, your social handles, all that good stuff?
Yeah, definitely come find me on LinkedIn. Kristi Mitchell. I think if you type it in the way that I'm spelled, I think that I'm the first person that shows up. I also have a YouTube channel, Marketing Uncomplicated. That's my business name. So you can find the YouTube channel. I have my Unfudge Your Marketing live show and podcast as well. I'm having issues with it being found on Apple. I promise it's there, but it's easier to just go to my website and get the link to sign up for the podcast from my website. Yeah, and just take a look. I have a whole resources section on my website, free resources. So I have a recorded masterclass that talks about the marketing funnel framework. I really wanted to make sure I talked about that because we talked about the framework so much. So if you're like, okay, I'm having a hard time visualizing this, I need to see it and hear it again. There is a free masterclass that you can sign up for right on my website under the resources tab.
Awesome. And folks, it's scrolling at the bottom of the screen here. And if you're listening and not watching, it's KristiMitchell.com. Unfudge Your Marketing is her podcast. definitely tune in. And like you said, if you're having trouble finding it, just go to the website and click the link for it. Is your podcast on other platforms? You
It
mentioned
is.
Apple.
Yes, it's on, I think, all the major ones. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
I don't know if it's because I have the asterisks in the title, if that's why it's like challenging to find it. I didn't think about that when I named it, but just go to my website. You can find it that way.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's a ton of fun. Amanda has come on and been a
Yes.
guest. I like to talk to business owners about their past marketing experiences that didn't go so well. I'm so thankful that my guests are willing to be so open and transparent with their stories so that we can really talk about the lessons that they learned to benefit all the listeners.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was a ball of fun. And unfortunately, some of the stories that, people come on and talk to Kristi about, she's heard.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for somebody to surprise you with something that you haven't heard. A lot of these.
I'll let you know when that happens.
Before we go, I would like you to tell our audience one of two things, or if you choose to do both, that's fine too. Tell our audience either your greatest joy, or you can tell us your favorite quote and why it's your favorite quote.
I have too many favorite quotes to pick one. So I'm going to go with greatest joy. I'm going to say two things for that, though. First of all, my son just started playing basketball this season for the first time, and they had a bunch of games he hadn't scored. And the last game he played, he scored 3 baskets, and I had tears in my eyes. I was so proud of him. It was actually like half the team's points for the game. So like, I was so incredibly proud of him. I have tears in my eyes now just thinking about it. That's my greatest joy, is like watching him do something new that's really cool. And work-wise, honestly, my greatest joy is when I hear clients tell me that marketing feels more doable and less overwhelming now. Because that's just, my work is done. Like, if they feel that way, it makes me feel really good.
Absolutely. I love that. I love it. I love it. I love it. Kristi, you have been a joy. I appreciate you so much. And again, I hope that you'll come on again periodically to talk to the audience about marketing tips and share other good things that are happening with your son.
Sure thing. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I'd love to come back.
I'm going to ask you to stand by with me while I close out the show for just a moment, if you don't mind.
Sure thing.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, we just got a quick, fast, in a hurry masterclass from Ms. Kristi Mitchell, marketing strategist and simplification specialist. Thank you so much, Kristi.
Thank you.
All right. We have just a few housekeeping items before we go. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I still have Kristi's information scrolling at the bottom. If you didn't catch it earlier, it's KristiMitchell.com, and her podcast is Unfudge Your Marketing. So make sure you check her out on those platforms. And like she said, you can find her on LinkedIn as well. Couple of things before we go. If you are interested in being a guest on the show, you can reach out to us on our website. That's life-uncensored.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and click into enter a form to send to us, and we'll get in touch with you so that we can talk about having you on our show as a guest. If you are interested in showcasing your product or services on our show, same thing, go to our website, life-uncensored.com, and fill out the form. We'd love to be a partner with you so that you can advertise and promote your business. That's something that's near and dear to our heart, making sure that the word gets out, especially for our small businesses who are grand businesses in the making. All right. So that's, again, if you would like to be a guest on the show, or if you would like to promote, advertise your brand. And then also, if you have a topic that you're interested in hearing about that we have not covered yet, by all means, same thing, go to the website, fill out the form, and we'll look into it, see what we can do, see if we can find some interesting guests to talk about that topic. All right. In the meantime, I'm going to leave you all with this quote that I have for today's show. And that quote comes from Mr. Henry Ford. And the quote is, stopping advertising to save money is like stopping your watch to save time. Think on that. All right, everyone. Stay hydrated, stay warm, and do something kind for someone. You never know. You might change the world. Until next time, toodaloo.